The great throne hall was filled with powerful beings. Dragon lords stood tall like mountains. Their scales shone under the golden lights. War generals in heavy armor stood in long lines, their faces hard and serious. Alien kings from distant worlds watched quietly, their strange eyes glowing in the dark. At the far end of the hall, on a throne made of black stone and fire, sat the Dragon Emperor. He was silent. Still. Watching everything. No one dared to speak without reason in his presence. The air itself felt heavy. Like something dangerous could happen at any moment. And then something strange broke that perfect order. At the center of the room stood a human woman. She looked out of place. Very out of place. She was old. Her hair was gray. Her clothes were simple and worn. She had no armor, no weapon, no guards. She looked small. Weak. Fragile. And that was the problem. Whispers began to spread across the hall. A human? Who let her in? This must be a mistake. A tall dragon noble stepped forward. His body was covered in dark red scales. His eyes were sharp and filled with pride. He was known for his strength and his cruelty. He looked down at the woman like she was nothing. His voice was cold. "Why is this human here?" The room grew quiet. Some nobles smirked. Others watched with interest. Humans were not respected in this empire. They were seen as weak. Useless. Breakable. The woman said nothing. She only stood there, holding a small cloth bag close to her chest. Her hands were slightly shaking, but her face remained calm. The dragon noble took another step forward. His heavy footsteps echoed across the hall. "You dare stand in front of the Dragon Emperor?" he said. His voice grew louder. "Kneel." The word hit the air like a command. The guards around the room tightened their grip on their weapons. Everyone waited, but the woman did not move, not even a little. The silence grew deeper. More dangerous. Another voice came from the side. A different noble, this one with silver scales, spoke with a mocking tone. "She doesn't even understand." "Respect." Some laughter followed. Low at first. Then louder. The woman still did not react. She just stood there, holding her bag. Looking straight ahead. As if none of them mattered. The dragon noble's expression darkened. His pride was hurt. A mere human. Ignoring him? Unacceptable. He raised his hand slightly. A guard stepped forward. Slowly. Each step was heavy. Intentional. Dangerous. The guard stopped just a few steps away from the woman, close enough to strike, close enough to kill. The tension in the room became unbearable. Everyone was watching. Now, even the alien kings leaned forward. Waiting. The woman finally moved, but not in fear. Not in panic. She lifted her head slightly and spoke. Her voice was soft, gentle. "I came to see my son for 1 second." The entire hall went silent. No one moved. No one reacted. As if the world itself paused. And then the silence broke. Laughter exploded across the throne room. Loud. Mocking. Cruel. "Her son. Did you hear that? She thinks the emperor is her child. Humans truly are foolish, even." Some guards smiled. The dragon noble laughed the loudest. Tears almost formed in his eyes. "This is beyond madness," he said. He looked at the woman again. Now with pure disgust. "You think the Dragon Emperor, the ruler of galaxies, is your son?" More laughter. The woman didn't argue, didn't defend herself. She simply stood there. Quiet. Still. Her hands holding the small bag tightly. Far above them all. The Dragon Emperor remained silent. He had not spoken a single word. He had not moved. His face showed no emotion, but his eyes were watching. Carefully. Closely. The dragon noble slowly stopped laughing. A cruel smile appeared on his face. "Then let's test your claim," he said. The room quieted again. Everyone knew what that meant. He raised his hand. Dark energy began to gather around it. It crackled like lightning. Dangerous. Deadly. The air itself seemed to shake. Some weaker beings stepped back. Even the guards looked nervous, because this was no simple attack. This was meant to destroy. Completely. The woman looked at the glowing energy. She understood. She knew what was about to happen slowly. She closed her eyes. But she did not beg. She did not cry. She did not run. She did not even step back. Instead, she stood there peacefully. As if she had already accepted her fate. Her lips moved slightly. And she whispered one word, son. The dragon noble smirked. Call him all you want, he said. No one is coming to save you. His hand moved forward. The energy grew. Stronger. Brighter. Deadlier. Just 1 second more and she would be gone. Forever. And then a voice cut through the entire hall. Deep. Cold. Sharp like a blade. Stop. Everything froze. The energy in the noble's hand vanished instantly, like it was never there. The guard stepped back. Shaking. The laughter died. Silence returned. But this time, it was different. Heavier. Fearful. Because that voice belonged to only one being. Slowly, very slowly, the Dragon Emperor stood up from his throne. The sound alone sent chills across the room. His presence filled the entire hall. Like a storm had arrived. His eyes burned like fire. Not calm anymore. Not distant, but alive. Dangerous. Every single person in the room lowered their head. No one dared to look directly at him, except one, the human woman. The Emperor stepped down from his throne. One step, then another. Each step echoed like thunder. Closer. Until he stood in front of her. He looked down at her. For a moment, the fire in his eyes softened, just a little. Then he spoke quietly, but his words shook the entire world. That's my mother. Silence, absolute. Silence. No laughter. No whispers. No movement. The dragon noble's face turned pale. His body froze. His mind refused to accept what he had just heard. The guards dropped their weapons. Some nobles stepped back in fear. The alien kings stared in shock. Because in that moment, everything changed. The weak human woman was not weak at all. She was the most important person in the entire empire. And they had just insulted her. Threatened her. Almost killed her. The Emperor slowly turned his head. His burning eyes locked onto the dragon noble, the same one who had raised his hand, the same one who had laughed, the same one who had tried to kill his mother. And in that moment everyone realized they had made a terrible mistake. Shock spread across the throne room like a wave. No one moved. No one spoke. It felt like time itself had stopped. A human, the mother of the Dragon Emperor? Impossible. Unthinkable. Unacceptable. The nobles stared at each other, their faces pale. The guards looked confused. Even the alien kings, who had seen many strange things in the universe, could not understand what they had just heard. But the Dragon Emperor did not repeat himself. He did not need to. His words were truth. Absolute. Final. Slowly, he stepped forward. One step, then another. His heavy footsteps echoed across the silent hall. No guards followed him. No one dared to move. It was as if the entire world belonged only to him and her. He stopped in front of the human woman. For a moment, he said nothing. He simply looked at her. Not like a ruler, not like a god, but like a son. His eyes, which had burned with anger just seconds ago, softened. His voice changed. It lost its cold edge. It became gentle. Mother, you came. The words were simple, but they shook the entire room. The woman looked up at him. Her old eyes were warm. Kind. Full of quiet love. She smiled softly. You forgot to visit. A small, simple sentence, but it carried years of meaning, years of waiting, years of love, years of silence. A wave of gasps filled the hall. The nobles looked at each other in fear. Some stepped back. Others lowered their heads, because now they understood. The same woman they had mocked, the same woman they had insulted, was the most important person in the entire empire. One of the nobles, the one with silver scales, tried to speak. His voice was shaking. This must be a trick. He could not accept it. His mind refused. A human being connected to such power? It went against everything he believed. But before he could say another word, the Emperor turned his head, just slightly, just one look, That was enough. The noble's body froze. His legs gave out. He dropped to his knees. Instantly, his entire body shaking. I'm sorry, he whispered. He could not even look up, because the Emperor's gaze felt like death itself. The room fell silent again. No one dared to question anything now, because the truth was already clear. And then the Emperor spoke again. But this time, his voice was different. Not angry, not soft, but deep, like he was remembering something far away, years ago. He said slowly. The room listened carefully. Before I became emperor, before I had power. His eyes moved slightly. As if he was seeing the past. I was weak. That word alone shocked many. Weak? The Dragon Emperor? It sounded impossible. But no one interrupted. No one dared. I was young, he continued. Injured. Alone. The hall was completely silent now. Every ear was focused on him. I fell from the sky into a human village. A few nobles shifted uncomfortably. They knew what usually happened in such cases. Dragons were feared. Hunted. Killed. Double quotes. People saw me. The Emperor said. They were afraid. He paused. They ran. That part was expected. Normal. But then his voice softened. Again, except one. All eyes slowly turned toward the human woman. She stood quietly, still, holding her small cloth bag. As if none of this mattered to her. She did not run, the Emperor said. She came closer. The room felt strange now. The story was pulling everyone in, even those who once laughed. Were now listening. She saw me, bleeding, broken. His hand moved slightly, as if remembering pain. I could not even stand. Low whisper spread through the nobles. They had never imagined their emperor in such a state. I thought she would kill me, he continued. That would have been easier. But then his voice changed. Softer. Warmer. But she didn't. He looked at the woman again. She brought me into her home. Gasps. She cleaned my wounds. More shock. She fed me. Silence. And when others came, when they wanted me gone. His eyes darkened slightly. She stood in front of me. The image was clear now. A weak human woman, standing against fear, against danger, against everything. To protect the dying dragon. She protected me. The Emperor said. No one spoke. No one moved, because now they were beginning to understand. She gave me a place to stay, a place to heal, a place to live. His voice slowed. She called me her son. The hall felt heavy. Different. The same word the woman had spoken earlier now carried deep meaning. At first, I did not understand. He said, I was a dragon. She was human. But she did not care. He paused. She treated me like family. The woman smiled slightly. As if those memories were still alive in her heart. She taught me how to survive. The Emperor continued, not just with strength, but with kindness. That word felt strange in the throne room. Kindness was not something dragons valued. But now, no one dared to question it. She stayed with me, he said, through pain, through fear, through everything. His voice grew quieter, until I was strong again. The room held its breath, and when I left, he stopped, for a moment. As if the memory hurt. She did not stop me. The woman looked down slightly, her smile gentle. She simply said, come back safe. Silence filled the room. Deep. Heavy. Real. The Emperor looked at her again, and I did. His voice was firm. Now, stronger. I returned. I grew stronger. I fought. I conquered. And one day, his presence filled the hall again. I became emperor. No one doubted that. They had seen his power, his strength. His rule. But now, they understood something more. Something deeper. And everything I am today, he said slowly, is because of her. The words echoed across the throne room. No one spoke. No one moved. Because there was nothing to say. The truth was clear. The Dragon Emperor, the most powerful being in the empire, was raised by a human, a simple woman, who showed kindness. When the world showed fear, the Emperor turned fully toward her, his expression calm. Now, respectful, mother, He said softly, "You should have told me you were coming." She smiled again. "I wanted to surprise you." A small moment. Simple but powerful around them. The nobles stood in silence. Their pride was gone, their arrogance broken, because now they understood the truth. Not all strength comes from power. Not all greatness comes from birth. Sometimes it comes from something much simpler, something they had ignored, something they had laughed at. Humanity. And in that moment, the entire throne room realized they had not only insulted a human, they had insulted the very reason their emperor existed. The Dragon Emperor stood tall in the center of the throne room. His presence filled the space like fire. Hot, heavy, unforgiving. No one dared to look up. No one dared to breathe too loudly. Because now, the truth was known, and judgment had come. His glowing eyes slowly moved across the room, from one noble to another, from one guard to the next. Every single person felt it. That weight, that fear, that silent question. Who will be punished first? The Emperor finally spoke. His voice was calm, but cold. You laughed at her. No one answered. No one even tried. The silence itself felt like guilt. Some nobles lowered their heads even more. Others clenched their fists, trying to control their fear. The Emperor took one step forward. The sound echoed like thunder. You mocked her. His voice grew sharper. You insulted her. The air became harder to breathe. The guards standing near the center began to shake. Their hands trembled on their weapons. They knew. They all knew. They had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Then, the Emperor's eyes stopped on one figure. The tall dragon noble. The same one who had stepped forward first. The same one who had laughed the loudest. The same one who had raised his hand to strike. The noble's body froze. His heart pounded so loud it felt like it would burst. Slowly, his knees gave out. He collapsed to the floor, hard. The sound echoed across the hall. He lowered his head to the ground, begging, "Forgive me, my emperor." His voice shook, broken, desperate. I did not know." He tried to speak more, but the words got stuck. Fear filled his chest. The emperor stared at him, silent, unmoving. Then he spoke again. "You threatened her." Each word felt heavy, like a hammer striking stone. The noble's body trembled harder. "I was wrong," he cried. "I made a mistake. I beg you, please." The emperor raised his hand slightly, and the noble fell silent instantly, like his voice had been taken away. The emperor's eyes burned brighter. "You showed no mercy." Silence. No one dared to interrupt. No one dared to defend him, because everyone knew it was true. The noble had shown no mercy. Not to a weak human. Not to an old woman. Not even for a moment. And now, mercy was the only thing he wanted. The emperor took another step forward. The ground beneath his feet cracked slightly. Power leaked into the air. Uncontrolled. Dangerous. Then, he spoke again. Slowly. Coldly. "Why should I?" Those 3 words hit harder than anything else. The room felt like it was closing in. The air grew thick, heavy, like it was crushing everyone inside. Some nobles closed their eyes. They expected death. Others stepped back slightly, as if distance could save them. The guards held their breath. No one moved. No one spoke, because they all knew the emperor had every right to destroy them, and no one could stop him. The noble on the ground began to cry. Tears fell onto the cold stone floor. "I will do anything," he said, "anything. Just spare me." But the emperor did not respond. His face showed no emotion, no kindness, no hesitation, only judgment. His hand slowly began to rise. Power gathered around him again, stronger this time, darker, more dangerous. The lights in the hall flickered. The air trembled. Even the alien kings looked afraid now, because they could feel it. If the emperor chose to strike, nothing would remain, not even ashes. The noble on the floor realized it too. This was the end. He pressed his head harder against the ground, waiting for the final moment, for the end of his life. And then the soft touch broke the tension. A gentle hand rested on the emperor's arm. The power in the air froze. The trembling stopped. The lights became steady again. Slowly, The Emperor turned his head. His eyes softened slightly. Because he knew that touch. It was her, his mother. She stood beside him, small, simple, but unshaken. She looked at him calmly. Not afraid, not worried, just steady. Enough, she said softly. One word, quiet, but powerful. The entire throne room froze again. Not from fear this time, but from shock. Because no one spoke to the Emperor like that. No one dared. Except her. The Emperor looked at her. For a moment. He said nothing. The fire in his eyes flickered. Like a storm trying to calm. She shook her head gently. They didn't know, she said. Her voice was kind. Not angry. Not harsh. Just understanding. The Emperor's expression changed slightly. They raised their hand against you, he said. His voice still carried anger. They would have killed you, she nodded slowly. Yes, no fear. No panic, just truth. But they didn't, she added. The Emperor paused. His mind caught on those words. They would have, he said again. His voice lower now, more personal. But they didn't, she repeated softly. Silence fell again. Different this time. The nobles slowly looked up, carefully, hoping, waiting, because something had changed. The Emperor was no longer looking at them. He was looking at her, listening, and that alone was something no one had ever seen before. The most powerful being in the galaxy. Listening, not commanding, not judging, but listening to them. I was just a human, she said. They saw what they were taught to see. Her words were simple, but they carried weight. Years of truth, years of pain, years of understanding. The Emperor clenched his fist slightly. They disrespected you. Yes, she said. They did. Another pause. Then she added softly, but you taught me something once. The Emperor looked at her again. Confused. I did. She smiled gently. Yes. She placed her hand over his. You said strength is not just power. His eyes widened slightly. A memory, old, faint, but real. You said, real strength is knowing when to stop. Silence, deep, heavy. The Emperor did not move, did not speak, because those words were his own. Words he had once learned from her, long ago, before power, before war, before the throne. Now, they had returned to him at the moment he needed them most. The fire in his eyes slowly faded. The crushing weight in the room began to lift. Just a little. The nobles noticed it. Hope began to rise, small, fragile, but real. The Emperor took a slow breath. Then another. His hand lowered. The dark energy disappeared. Completely. The noble on the ground remained frozen. Too afraid to move. Too afraid to believe. The Emperor looked at him again. But this time, his gaze was different. Still powerful. Still dangerous. But no longer filled with pure destruction. The judgment had not ended. But something had changed. Because in that moment, the most powerful being in the galaxy paused, not because of fear, not because of weakness, but because of a human woman. His mother, and her simple words, had stopped the storm. The Dragon Emperor stood still. For a moment, the entire throne room waited. No one moved. No one spoke, because everything now depended on his next words. The anger inside him was still there, burning. Strong. But it was no longer wild. No longer out of control. Slowly, he took a deep breath. The fire in his eyes faded. Not completely, but enough. Enough to think. Enough to choose. He looked down at the noble who was still on the ground. Shaking. Broken. Waiting for death. The Emperor's voice came at last. Calm, but firm. For her sake, you will live. The words echoed across the hall. For a second, no one reacted. Then relief flooded the room, like a wave. Some nobles almost collapsed where they stood. Others let out quiet breaths they didn't know they were holding. The guards relaxed slightly. Even the alien kings exchanged glances. Because they all knew. They had just witnessed something impossible. Mercy. From the Dragon Emperor. The noble on the ground froze. His body stopped shaking for a moment. As if he didn't understand what he just heard. Then slowly, very slowly, he lifted his head. Tears filled his eyes. Thank you, my Emperor. He whispered. His voice was weak. Broken. Full of fear. But the emperor did not look at him with kindness. His expression remained serious. Cold. Because this was not forgiveness. Not fully. This was a second chance, and second chances come with a cost. You will remember this day. His voice grew stronger. Sharper. Like a warning carved into stone. The noble quickly lowered his head again. Yes, I will never forget, he said. And neither will any of you, the emperor continued. His gaze moved across the entire throne room. Every noble. Every guard, every visitor. No one escaped his eyes. From this moment forward, he paused, letting the weight of his words settle. Humans are under my protection. Shock hit the room again, stronger this time. Some nobles looked up without thinking. Others gasped quietly. The alien king stared in disbelief. Because this was not a small decision. This was not a simple rule. This was a command that would change the entire empire. Any harm to them? The emperor's voice lowered. Danger return is an insult to me. Double quotes silence. Heavy. Final. No one dared question it. No one dared disagree. Because now it was clear. Humans were no longer weak in the eyes of the empire. They were protected by the strongest being in the galaxy. The nobles quickly bowed their heads. Deep. Respectful. Fear was still in their eyes, but something else had appeared to. Understanding. And slowly, respect. Yes, my emperor, they said together. The words echoed across the hall. Not forced. Not empty. But real. The emperor stood quietly for a moment, watching them, making sure they understood. Making sure they would remember. Then he turned away from them and looked back at her. His mother, standing there, as simple as before, holding her small cloth bag, as if nothing had changed. As if she had not just changed the fate of an entire empire. His expression softened again. Come, he said gently. Stay with me. The words were not a command, not like before. They were requests. Simple. Honest. For the first time in a long time, he was not speaking as an emperor. He was speaking as a son. The room watched in silence. Because now, this moment was different. More personal. More real. The woman looked at him. Her eyes warmed. Kind. She smiled. A soft, gentle smile. I belong where I came from, she said. The answer was calm, but firm. The emperor frowned slightly. Not in anger, but in confusion. You are safe here, he said. His voice carried concern. Real concern. This place is protected. No one can harm you. He looked around the throne room. At the guards. At the nobles. At the power surrounding him. This is the safest place in the universe. The woman listened, then nodded slowly. I know, she said. Her voice soft. I was always safe. She paused, then looked directly at him. Because of you. The emperor's expression changed, just a little. Those words touched something deep inside him. Something old. Something human. The room fell silent again. But this silence was not filled with fear. It was filled with emotion, the kind no one expected to feel in a place like this. Then she added softly, but your people need you more. The emperor looked at her carefully. Her words were simple, but they carried truth, deep truth. You have a duty, she continued, a responsibility. She glanced around the throne room. At the nobles. At the guards. At the leaders of many worlds. They look to you. They depend on you. Her voice was calm. But strong. You cannot leave that behind. The emperor said nothing, but his mind was moving. Thinking. Remembering. She stepped a little closer, her small hand reaching out again, resting gently on his arm. You are not just my son, she said. You are their emperor. Silence. The weight of those words filled the room, because everyone knew. She was right. The emperor looked down slightly, then back at her. And you? He asked quietly. Who will take care of you? A small question, but full of meaning. The woman smiled again, a little brighter this time. I've been taking care of myself for a long time, she said. A few nobles shifted uncomfortably, because now they understood. She had always been strong, just not in the way they expected. I have my home, she continued, my village, my life. She held her small bag a little tighter. I don't need a palace. I don't need power. She looked around the grand throne room. at all the gold. All the strength, all the fear. Then back at him, I only needed to see you. The Emperor's chest tightened slightly, a feeling he had not felt in a long time. Not in war, not in battle, not even in victory. Something deeper. Something more real. I wanted to know you were safe, she added. And now I do. Silence filled the room once again, but this time it felt warm. The Emperor stood still, caught between two worlds, the world of power. And the world of simple love. For a moment, he did not know what to say, but slowly he nodded. Just once, a quiet understanding, because deep inside, he knew she was right. He could not leave his throne. He could not abandon his people. But he also knew he would never let her out of his life again. And in that moment, the throne room witnessed something rare. Not power. Not fear, but choice. A human choice. Simple. Difficult. And stronger than anything else. Because even the Dragon Emperor had to choose between being a ruler and being a son. The story spread across the stars. At first, it moved slowly, a whisper between traders, a rumor shared by travelers, a quiet message sent from one world to another. But soon, it became something much bigger. Something impossible to ignore. A human woman, mother of the Dragon Emperor. People repeated the words again and again. Some did not believe it, others laughed at first, but the truth had already been seen. Witnessed. Confirmed. By nobles. By kings. By entire worlds. And once the truth reached the far edges of the galaxy, everything began to change. On distant planets, humans looked at each other in silence for generations. They had been treated as weak. Ignored. Disrespected. Sometimes even hunted. They were seen as small, breakable. Unimportant. But now, that image was breaking. Slowly. But surely. Because one simple truth stood above everything. The most powerful being in the universe, called a human woman, mother, in the great cities of alien worlds. People began to speak differently. A merchant who once ignored humans now greeted them with respect. A guard who once pushed them aside now stepped back and gave them space. Leaders who once dismissed them now thought carefully before making decisions, because they all knew the Dragon Emperor was watching, and his words were not empty. Any harm to them is an insult to me. That sentence echoed across the stars again and again until it became law, until it became fear. And then something more. Respect. Back in the Empire, changes came quickly. Orders were sent out from the throne. Clear. Strong. Final. Humans were now under imperial protection. No one could harm them. No one could treat them as lesser beings. Anyone who broke this law would face the Emperor himself, and no one wanted that. Villages that once lived in fear now felt safe. For the first time in many years, human ships traveled freely through space, without being stopped, without being attacked, without being ignored. And slowly, something new began to grow. Pride. But far from the great cities, far from the power and noise of the Empire, there was a small village. Simple. Quiet. Peaceful. Nothing had changed there, and yet everything had changed, because that was where she lived, the human woman, the mother of the Dragon Emperor. Her house was small, made of wood and stone. Her garden was simple, filled with flowers and fresh food. She lived the same life she always had. Calm. Quiet. Simple. But now, sometimes, the sky would change, the clouds would move, the air would grow still, and a great shadow would pass over the land. People in the village would look up. Not with fear, but with wonder, because they knew what it meant. He had come. The Dragon Emperor did not arrive with armies. He did not bring guards. He did not announce himself. He simply came. Quietly. Like he used to, long ago, when he was not an emperor, when he was just a wounded dragon, looking for a place to rest. He would land outside the village, far from the people, so he would not scare them, and then he would walk. Step by step, through the small path, toward her home. The villagers would watch, in silence. In awe, because the most powerful being in the universe was walking like a normal man, just to see his mother. She would be waiting for him every time. Standing near the door, with that same gentle smile. "Welcome back," she would say. Simple words, but full of warmth. He would nod. A small smile forming on his face, a side of him no one else ever saw. Inside the house, there was no throne. No gold. No power. Only a small table. 2 chairs. And the smell of fresh food. She would cook for him, just like before. Simple meals, nothing special. But to him, they meant everything. Because in that small house, he was not the emperor. He was just her son. They would sit together. Eat together. Talk quietly. She would ask him about his life, about his work, about his people. He would answer. Honestly. Without pride. Without power. Just truth. Sometimes she would laugh. Sometimes she would shake her head. Sometimes she would give him advice. Simple advice, but strong. Be patient. Listen more. Don't let anger control you. And every time he listened. Because no matter how powerful he became, her words still mattered the most. When it was time to leave, the moment was always quiet. He would stand outside, looking at her. As if he didn't want to go. She would smile. "You have work to do," she would say. He would nod slowly. "I will come back," he would reply, and she would answer the same way every time. "I know. No fear. No doubt. Just trust." And then he would rise into the sky, back to his empire. Back to his throne, back to his duties. But something always went with him. Something he carried inside. Something stronger than power, stronger than fear, stronger than command. Kindness. Because in a universe ruled by strength, by war, by dominance, there was one truth no one could ignore anymore. The strongest being in existence was not shaped by power. He was not shaped by war. He was not shaped by fear. He was shaped by a human, a simple woman, who chose kindness over fear. Care over strength. Love over power. And that truth changed everything, not just for humans, but for the entire galaxy. Because now, for the first time, they understood something important. Strength is not just about power. It is about choice. And sometimes, the smallest, weakest person can shape the strongest being in the universe. And that was the beginning of a new era, a new understanding. A new future. Where humans were no longer ignored. No longer disrespected. No longer seen as weak, but as something more, something rare, something powerful in a different way. Human. And that changed everything.